We build cities of glass and steel, pave over dense forests, and engineer our living rooms to a perfectly controlled 72 degrees. We've structured our lives around the assumption that we hold the reins to the planet. But step entirely outside the borders of our concrete grid, and the rules change instantly. In a fraction of a second, an animal recognizes it has crossed into an apex predator's domain. The nervous system fires a chemical trigger, and the muscles lock into an absolute freeze. This is the physiological reality of entering a world where human logic no longer applies. Beyond our highways, millions of square miles of dense jungle canopies and sweeping savannas operate completely off our grid. In these spaces, human laws, social contracts, and moral frameworks hold no weight. We tend to treat the wild as a sanctuary we can visit. In truth, it is an ancient system governed by physical laws that predate our species and continue to function independently of our presence. To see how this system runs, we look to the environments that actively reject us. In the Sahara, the heat shimmer and cracked earth create an environment defined by sensory deprivation and a total scarcity of water. In the Himalayas, the atmosphere thins to a fraction of sea level pressure. Temperatures plummet so rapidly that survival requires constant, massive caloric burning just to keep blood flowing. Biologists call these parameters environmental resistance. It is the sum of all the physical and biological factors, weather, predators, and resource scarcity, that prevent a species from reproducing at its maximum theoretical rate. This scatterplot maps out that resistance. We have human habitability on the bottom axis and biological specialization on the vertical axis. The data shows a clear inverse correlation. Where humans cannot survive, we find the most specialized physical traits. Look at the outliers, the ocean trenches and high-altitude peaks. Resistance here is so absolute that animals must engineer highly specific biological tools just to survive. These high-pressure evolutionary crucibles forge the most specialized biological machines on the planet. Drop 3,000 feet below the ocean's surface, into the midnight zone. The pressure is crushing, and the sunlight is gone. It is a realm defined by total sensory deprivation. Navigating this environment requires a specific set of tools. The great white shark represents a biological solution to this cold, dark pressure. Over 300 million years, mammalian ancestors underwent rapid evolutionary changes, while the great white shark's design remained static. The timeline marker expands to show the ampullae of Lorenzini, jelly-filled pores detecting tiny electrical pulses from a heartbeat miles away, bypassing light entirely. The shark's anatomy illustrates how mechanics can align so closely with the demands of an environment that the need for further evolutionary change effectively disappears. In contrast to the slow-moving deep ocean, the African savanna hinges on explosive, hyperkinetic biology. A cheetah accelerates to 70 miles per hour in 3 seconds. Its spine acts like a coiled spring, flexing and extending to maximize every stride. While this looks like total predator dominance, the data tells a different story. Most of these high-speed strikes end in failure. The prey frequently escapes. This line graph plots the sprint's thermodynamic cost. The vertical drop shows rapid caloric expenditure, crossing a critical deficit threshold upon failure. Overlaying the prey's escape probability shrinks the predator's margins. Survival exists only in a narrow window where speed, timing, and terrain perfectly align. Nature enforces a zero-sum equilibrium where every calorie is a high-stakes gamble and no meal is ever guaranteed. In the extreme isolation of the Himalayas, this energetic equilibrium is even more precarious. For a snow leopard mother rearing a cub, every decision is a calculation of massive biological expense. Nursing and protecting a vulnerable life in an environment with no margin for error requires burning calories she may not be able to replace. Survival here depends on generational transfer, the passing of complex survival data, from navigating rock faces to tracking prey, without the use of language. This map shows the cost of that education. Because food is so scarce, sustaining just 2 animals requires a territorial footprint of up to 400 square miles. It is a massive area that must be defended just to secure the minimum energy required to raise a single cub. Maternal care in these conditions is an immense energetic investment, a commitment of resources that runs directly counter to the high stakes of the environment. Pulling back to a macro perspective, we see millions of these distinct ecosystems and biological engines locking together and operating in unison. These systems have functioned for hundreds of millions of years. They do not require human observation or intervention to maintain their balance. By looking at the math of the hunt and mechanics of survival, we see the world as it actually is, a complex, ancient machine. Recognizing the scale of these rules allows us to move past the desire to control the wild and instead simply look at it with the perspective it has earned.